really good point about establishing relationships and communicating with your state representatives and your state senators. For the most part, I mean, we meet with anybody and everybody who calls and says, I want to talk to Representative Davis about an issue. I mean, I think pretty much everybody's going to operate that way, or else you probably don't get reelected. And I think it's important to also, focus on the facts. And I just try not to make this as a partisan issue. I mean, when I hear the question, well, what about state leadership? I mean, the first thing I'm thinking is, what do you mean state leadership? No, the lieutenant governor. My speaker, hasn't been pushing this. I haven't heard from a single House member, in fact, that's pushing this. I thought the governor gave a very interesting and vague statement yesterday about his position. So I want to caution you to not have this knee-jerk, like every Republican is a bigot and is going to, support this type of legislation, because that's just not true. And I'm constantly reminding people the HERO ordinance failed not just because Republicans campaigned against it, right? The city of Houston is a blue city, so it wasn't just ours that defeated that ordinance. So before you start, wanting to pass judgment on Republicans, remember, that was a group effort, and it couldn't have just been the ours to have defeated that ordinance.
Let me just add something, and don't get pissed off when I tell you this either. The last administration in the city of Houston, I believe, got some bad advice on trying to subpoena ministers' sermons. All right. After that blew over, I think that it would have behooved this organization to set up some kind of meetings with the ministers, the black ministers, and see whether or not that you can start dealing with them and get them to see your point of view. It's not impossible. I'm going to tell you why it's not impossible. When I carried the hate crime bill, there was one guy on the floor of the House, I could have just whipped his ass. I got just that angry with him. You know how you get pissed off about something? And then I was going to be in Austin that weekend, and so I asked him a question. I said, let me ask you something. Are you going to be here this weekend? He said, yes. I said, do you think it's possible for us to sit down and hammer out a definition of sexual orientation? He said, let's try. So Diane Hardy Garcia, some of you may know her, was the lobbyist for your group, and her team and some more people, and 20, 30, 40 of us got together, and from Friday night to Sunday night, we came up with a definition. Now, this guy would have been considered an ultra Tea Party person in today's terms of the GOP designation. Nobody would have ever thought that he would have ever done anything like this. So I asked him after we got through it, and all the sides got through. None of us got exactly what we wanted, but we came up with a workable definition. I asked myself, would you keep this confidential, and would you offer this as an amendment to my bill? He said yes. So bill got set. We did our arguments. He came up and he had a motion to my bill, and the House was in total silence. The House was so silent until had you dropped a pen, you really would have heard it. And when he came and offered his amendment, and I accepted it, he brought over 9 votes, which was a little more than what I needed to pass the bill. But had I never reached out to him, I never would have known that he would have been amenable to working with me and coming with a definition, because I just had in my mind, this is a Republican. He's not going to ever see my point of view. There's no need of me talking to him. I'm wasting my time. But that effort taught me a lot. And the community, the black community, the ministerial community is not against you. You just don't communicate with them. And as long as you take a standoff where you are and let them have a standoff where they are, it's going to forever be a divided community. African Americans are some of the most easygoing people. We fight against discrimination all our lives. Every day of our lives, we fight against discrimination because we don't believe no one should be discriminated against. But if the mayor had just done one thing, went over quietly and says, I'm sorry, I blew it, I made a mistake, I got some advice, accept my apology. I need your help. They would have had a press conference, and they would have came together. I would have said I was not saying every African-American minister who was opposed to the hero would have done it, but I guarantee you about 75 to 85% of them would have. And the hero amendment would have passed with their support.
Representative, that actually brings me perfectly to the final question that I'm going to ask you all. And I would love if the amazing Senator Sylvia Garcia would start off answering. Typically, our equality movements have been led by white gay men. From your perspective and experience, what should our modern-day coalition look like?
Which goal? Of the
LGBT Equality Coalition.
Oh, okay. Well, I want to first piggyback on some of the comments Representative made. I think that outreach is really not just for the African American community, but for all communities, because everyone needs to know that discrimination is discrimination toward all of us, and we really always say that, but we actually have to practice it and preach it. And the outreach has to begin now. If you haven't done it, we've got to do it, especially to be able to fight this bathroom bill. Because as silly as the whole thing is, it's serious. And we're going to have to make sure that we're united and that we're all together. I know I attended a national conference for progressive Democrats, legislators, a couple of weeks ago. And I told them, they all said, oh no, we know Texas, this is going on and we're going to get there. And I said, look, if you're not there already, it's late. If it's not already happening, it's late. Because remember what Representative Davis said, we can't vote on anything for 2 months. So that means probably what, it's March, April? So that's going to go real quickly. We've already lost December. And then January, we start January the 10th. And it's Lieutenant Governor Patrick's biggest priority. But the governor has to agree to make it an emergency item. He said yesterday, or was it today, that he hasn't done that yet. He plans to do it next month. So if it doesn't become an emergency item, we have more time. But if it does, we'll be facing this late March. So the outreach has to be now, and it has to be with all the communities, the faith community, the business community, the tourist community, all, Latinos, all of us. And then with our usual allies on all the progressive issues, you've got to start working with them and make sure that everybody's on the same page. Because if we're not...
Equality is not necessarily just a progressive issue, sorry.
No, that is true, and that's why I said all our allies. I mean, and we need to make sure that we're all ready and that we've got the same message. And I must say that last time on Hero, they beat us on messaging, and they're already way ahead of us this time around. Because it is going to be a lot of people who are afraid of that guy that's going to dress as a girl and going to hurt your little girl. We've got to find a way to turn that around. And she's absolutely right. You've got to reach out to everybody, and especially our minority communities, because we do feel left out. And I think it's important that the image that's projected is not one of just white male gays. You all may get pissed off at me because I just said that. So now you'll be pissed off at both of us. But the fact is, it's a big state. We've got a lot of people to convince. I actually told one of the fellows that was there at this particular conference who was talking about the North Carolina issue. He had worked and organized in the North Carolina. I said, send me one of your bubbas that you sent to the rural areas of North Carolina. And it would send me people of all. I said, don't just send me a white guy from North Carolina or from the national office. That ain't going to work in Texas. We need diversity. You need to show that it really is everywhere and that there are your neighbors. They're everywhere, whether it's at church or at school. It's like, it's been going on for a long time, and they've been using bathrooms for a long time, for Christ's sake. It's not a new issue.
I'll add something on the coalition building and what a modern coalition should look like. And I'll just say I think we should, obviously everything you said I agree with, but we need to look at other ways that we can have coalitions together as well. So I'm going to throw out some more numbers because that's what we do, work with the business community. But 47% of meeting planners said they will absolutely avoid planning events in states that pass discriminatory legislation. So again, that's a North Carolina issue, but if Lieutenant Governor Patrick gets what he wants, Texas is looking at a bill that's very similar to North Carolina's HB 2. And so right now, the NCAA has 5 different large events planned in Texas coming up soon. And one that we're looking at is San Antonio. It has an impact $75 million for their men's Final Four in 2018. They'll pull out if Lieutenant Governor Patrick's bill gets passed, if his bathroom bill, if his women's privacy bill gets pulled. The NFL would not have chosen Houston to host the Super Bowl if this is 2 years down the road and Texas passes a North Carolina type HB2. So we can start having coalitions with the business community and the LGBT community and the faith community. I mean, we can find areas where we align on, where the business community attacks with just numbers and economic issues, and then other groups can come on what they're good at. And so I think it's just trying to reach out to different people and then come together is the best way to build a coalition for the future.
On a very basic level, I mean, we're state representatives, so we each have a constituency. So you need to make sure you're talking to your state representative, and the LGBT community all over the state needs to do that. I mean, you know, maybe you live in a district that is not, you have a representative that may not be LGBT friendly, but that doesn't mean that constituent shouldn't go to the office and ask for a meeting or make a phone call or send an email to say, you know, I have a voice, I'm your constituent, and this is what, you know, I think. When you talk about, like, what is that, you know, what does that look like? What I'm thinking is, it looks like my, you know, what does my district look like? That's, because that's who I'm going to be listening to, is who, you know, who I represent. And blue, I mean, I know represent.
And help other people on their legislation that may not be impacting you. So be a part of other coalitions to help persons get their things done.
That's a really great point.